I talked about my fabric haul, and I kind of gave you guys some ideas of what's floating around in my noggin about what's going to be coming up in the next couple of upcoming videos. And so today I'm going to start tackling them. I absolutely refuse to let a dollop of this fabric end up in that closet. It's organized. I don't want to have to change it. So, that being said, we are going to dive into this pile of fabric head first. I'm going to be using the Autumn Mum fabric that was in that haul video. For this fabric, I have 5 yards of it, and I want to make a sundress. So idealistically, I want to use this pattern, McCalls 8177 in view C. However, it calls for view C, 6.5 yards of fabric, 6.5, 6 3/4 yards of fabric for the size that I need. And that's a lot. That's 1.5 yards more than I have. However, I have looked at the pattern instructions, and the pattern instructions are written for a print that goes one direction. Since my print is not directional, I can get away with flipping my pattern pieces head to toe. I haven't made this pattern before. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to trace out the pattern in my size. I'm going to lay it out as if I am going to cut it out to make sure I have enough fabric. If it fits, I'm then going to make the waist up as a mock-up to make sure it fits in my trouble zones. And then I'm going to proceed with cutting it out of the floral print. I'd rather play fabric chicken than have leftovers that I have to deal with. If those are the two fences I have to sit on, I'd rather play fabric chicken. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it works. I'll let you guys know how it goes. All right, let's jump into this. Stick around. So I've got all of the pattern pieces traced out, and based on the size of them, I'm really hoping that I can fit this all onto the 5 yards. It might be tight though. So I laid it out again, with the exception of right here is the only place that I'm having a problem. And I think if I bring it up an inch or two, I should actually have enough for everything except for the facing pieces. And so if I do the facing pieces out of a solid, I should be able to make this actually work. So I'm going to make my mock-up, but I'm going to cut it at this lengthen line. I'm not worried about the dress fitting me from like the hip down. So instead of wasting excess fabric, just gonna do from the lengthen and shorten line up. Okay, so I cut out the 4 pieces that make the dress just from the lengthen and shorten line up. And then I also cut out the sleeve, since it is a raglan sleeve style top, that I'm gonna need the sleeve in order to see if it fits. And I'm gonna assemble it as is with my 5/8 seam allowance just to see how everything fits, how the pattern fits as is. Here's where I'm at on the assembly for this. All of these seams are in, and it's actually pretty simple so far. So I'm going to attach the raglan sleeves, and then we'll see where we're at as far as fit. So here's where this is at. I can close this all the way down. There's a little bit of gaping in the back, but I might bring that in an inch or so. Okay, so I put a couple of pins in it where the buttons might be. And then I put a pin right here, taking it in the back, and that seems to be getting rid of that gaping. Okay, I think I am just gonna proceed that way. And then I think, because this is the problem I'm having, boop, I think I'm gonna shorten this elastic by an inch. That should be enough. Well, yeah. By shortening the pattern 1 inch at the skirt length, which I'm totally okay with because it has a 1.5 inch hem. So if I do a 1/2 inch roll hem, I'll still be fine. And same finished length. The facing should be able to come out of this piece right here, flipped, if I do some creative cutting. But otherwise, with taking the inch out of the back piece that I needed to do to remove the gaping, everybody fits on 5 yards. Yes. Okay, I got everything cut out. The entire dress, pockets, facing, all of it, out of the 5 yards. I had to play a little bit of Tetris with the pockets and the facing, but it's all the same fabric. I didn't have to dip into solids at all. So that's super exciting. Yeah, so today was productive. I am, however, going to call it done for the night and reconvene in the morning for assembly. But with how quickly that the mock-up went together, I think assembly is going to go really smoothly, I hope. In case you were wondering, these are my scraps. Like, I even still have some decently sized pieces here. I wouldn't be able to squeeze another pocket out of there if I needed to, but it was enough. 5 yards was totally enough with creative cutting. Everything is on the green. There's that. It is day 2 of this build. It is cold. It is rainy. Well, it's cold by Florida standards. Can't promise that that's the case for the rest of the world. It's like 65 degrees over here. And I'm going to tackle the assembly of this dress. I read through the instructions last night. It's pretty straightforward. I will do my best to walk you guys through anything that seems confusing. The top of the shoulder of the sleeve is a little weird. You know, maybe it's one of those things where you just kind of have to do it to figure it out. I don't know. But either way, today's assembly of the dress. Steps 1 through 6 essentially are assemble the front, assemble the back, add the pockets. Easy squeezy lemon peasy, right? Pockets. I'm abandoning the instructions and doing the sleeve by instinct. And I will let you know what I ended up doing in the aftermath. For the elastic casing on the bottom of the sleeve, I serged the bottom of the sleeve with a scant 1/8 of an inch roll to my serger. And then I pulled it up an inch and pinned it in place, and I'm going to stitch as close to the top as possible. This is going to keep my raw edges on the inside so I don't get any fraying when the dress is laundered. Since the instructions didn't give us a placement line for my bias tape. I used my hem gauge and placed it 5/8 of an inch down, assuming that's where it's supposed to go. And then I'm supposed to take this and roll it. So to compensate for the fact that I'm using 1/2 inch bias tape instead of 7/8 of an inch bias tape, I'm folding it over as if I was using the 7/8 inch bias tape, and in theory it should be the same, question mark, hopefully. Keep your fingers crossed for me because I'm a confused human being. And then from here, I need to sew the underarm seam together and then attach it to the dress. And then on the dress, it's attached to facing, buttonholes, and hem. So we're getting close. Okay guys, final thoughts and wrap up. If I were to give this pattern a review, I think I would give it like a 3.5 stars. A couple of reasons. One, even after taking it in and doing a custom fit, the elastic is still really, really big here. And I could probably get away with even taking it in another inch, but because it's a raglan sleeve, there's no way of knowing that until it's fully in, at least according to the instructions that come with the dress. Two, it simultaneously overcomplicates and oversimplifies, but in the wrong direction. Like, these seams for the sides and all that, they completely overcomplicated the instructions. However, the things that were complicated, like inserting the sleeves and inserting the pockets, while I am, as a seasoned seamstress, is able to do that, somebody who's new to sewing, or even like a level 2, level 3, not quite a beginner, but more advanced, still might find those things needing step-by-step instructions for. And they gloss over them as if you already know how to put pockets in. So they oversimplified the things that they should have put better instructions, and then they overcomplicated the things that didn't need to be overcomplicated. So if you are a seasoned sewist, trust your instincts on this one, throw the instructions out. The original pattern had the buttons 4 inches apart, and I brought it down to 3 inches because that is way too far apart for anybody with cleavage to have their button. That being said, I also had to go back to the store for more buttons because I originally purchased the 11 that the pattern calls for, not 14, which is what I ended up needing. My other big complaint with it was that the pattern calls for 1.5 yards to 1.75 yards more fabric than I needed, and that is honestly ridiculous. In looking at the picture, the way that it was, there could have been a lot of wasted fabric if I'd followed their cutting instructions. I don't know. Did they get on the same page with each other and discuss, like, hey, how do we make people spend more money on fabric? I know. Let's give them these convoluted instructions. I don't know. I did have to make changes to the pattern to accommodate my body. That's to be expected when you aren't an off-the-rack figure. So anyways, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for sewing with me, and I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. The original pattern had the buttons 4 inches apart, so that's a little bit gapey in the booble region. Booble? The original pattern, the pattern had the buttons 4 inches apart. So they would have been here and here. Like, that's quite gapey. Aside from the fact that I look like a completely drowned rat, the dress is done.
Oh, we're doing a photo shoot? Because you look so fabulous?
I made the buttonholes 3 inches apart instead of 4 inches apart to prevent gaping in the bustle region.